Chapter 14. You aren't a salmon. All of a sudden, Winston felt himself being picked up gently by his tatty scarf and flung across the street on the snowy pavement. He landed heavily and rolled across the frozen ground. He just lay on the floor, panting and willing his heart to stop thumping like a big bass drum. Without opening his eyes, he patted himself down with his paws. He didn't feel as flat as a pancake. So what has happened? He took a deep breath, opened his eyes, and nearly fainted. Standing over him with her face very close to his own was a large, fluffy, white cat. He panicked, squeaked in alarm, and scrabbled backwards as quickly as he could, keeping his eyes on the feline fiend who was glaring at him. But instead of pouncing on him, the cat suddenly plonked herself down and lazily licked her paw. "Darling, do come away from the edge of that road," she drawled. "I'm not going to rescue you again." Winston stopped scrabbling and scampered away from the curb, making sure to keep the cat at an escapable distance from him at all times. You rescued me," stammered Winston. The cat stopped grooming herself and looked at Winston. "Of course," she purred. "You were about to be squished flat under the wheels of those cars. Very careless of you, I must say." When Winston didn't say anything, she continued. "I live at one of those apartments near here. My people are throwing a party this evening. Lots of nice party food and lovely music, but it got a bit stuffy in there, so I nipped out for some air. That's when I saw you from the other side of the road, and I could just tell you were about to get hit by one of those dreadful vehicles. Someone needed to help you because you weren't helping yourself." "And now you're going to eat me?" squeaked Winston in a small and terrified voice. The cat looked mortally offended. "Eat you?" she cried. "Now why on earth would I do that?" "Because that's what cats do, isn't it?" said Winston quietly. "Eat mice." The cat rolled her eyes. "Well, I don't know about that, but this cat certainly doesn't. I've never nibbled a mouse in my life. For dinner this evening I had poached salmon, scallops and a little dollop of caviar. I also had some of the canapes that were being handed around at the party. It was all rather delicious. Far more tasty than a grubby little mouse, I should think." She licked her lips at the thought of those delicious nibbles she'd helped herself to from the trays laid out in the kitchen at home. "Now tell me, what were you thinking trying to cross that busy road when you're scarcely much bigger than a walnut?" Winston took a few steps closer to the cat, who smiled at him kindly. He was feeling less afraid now. The closer he got to his rescuer, the more he could see that she wasn't pretending. Her eyes twinkled with kindness that seemed absolutely genuine. She had silky, snowy fur and a diamond collar that glinted and gleamed in the light of the nearby lamppost. "My name's Prudence," said the cat. "Lady Prudence Merryweather Whiskerton the Third, if you want my full title, but most people call me Prue." She eyed Winston with his grubby fur and tatty scarf. "And you are?" If she'd been wearing spectacles, she would have been looking over the top of them. Winston shyly introduced himself, and for the second time that evening, he found himself telling his tale about the important mission to deliver the letter to Father Christmas, who was apparently right at this very moment in Fortesque's department store. "But now I've lost the letter," he said, sighing, "so whoever wrote it isn't going to have a very happy Christmas at all, and it's all my fault." Prue listened to Winston, and then she looked around, squinting as she peered across the street. "I say," she said, that wouldn't be it over there, would it? Stuck to that traffic light?" Winston had to stand on tiptoes to see where Prue was pointing. He couldn't believe it. There was the letter, still stuck exactly where it had been all along. He'd lost sight of it when he was being spun around in circles and almost flattened. The envelope was looking a bit damp and a bit tatty now, and the writing in the front seemed a little bit smudged. "Yes, that's it," cried Winston excitedly. Prue lowered herself down onto the snow. "Come on," she said slightly bossily. "Hop on my back and we'll go and fetch it." Winston wasn't sure. He hesitated, looking a bit nervous. "For goodness sake, you aren't a salmon, so I'm not going to eat you," said Prue. Winston laughed and carefully clambered onto the shoulders of his strange new friend. Her fur was thick and soft, and as Winston sank into it, he felt warm for the first time that evening. Once he was settled, Prue waited for a suitable gap in the traffic before bounding across the street in a few easy pounces. She leapt up and retrieved Winston's letter with her mouth and flung it over her shoulder for her passenger to catch. "And now," she said grandly, "time for us to deliver it to Fort Essex." "You know where it is?" asked Winston. Prue laughed. "Know it? Why, everything I own comes from there. It's the only place in town my people shop. They had my collar made there by the head jeweller. You'll get there much quicker if I take you, and I know where I'm going. And besides, I doubt you can get anywhere quickly with such tiny feet." Winston laughed and held on tight as she elegantly trotted down the street. He couldn't believe that he was riding on the back of a cat. What a strange night this has turned into.